Howdy channel fans, welcome to video 4 of the Skymaster normal F14 project. This one, Maverick definitely is getting jealous about. Cheesy? Maybe, you'll see. We have completed the back end, turbines have been installed, that's all happened in video 3, and we are ready to start putting the tanks, swing wings, and all that stuff back in the midsection of this plane. So let's dive back in. So last video we had just gotten our turbine mounting all sorted out, and we had tested the tanks and left them filled up with air overnight. The 2 saddle tanks passed, and now we're going to get the main tank set up with our bung fittings and everything, get it pressurized and let that sit for a couple hours and prepare the saddle tanks for installation. So we'll get this guy done up first, following the exact same procedure as we did on the saddle tanks. All right, so we've got our lines hooked up to our tank. I'm just waiting to put some safety wire on there. These are excessively long. We'll cut them, like I mentioned, to fit. So those guys are done. We've got our main tank pressurized. That's holding pressure nicely, so we'll leave that for a while. And we've also put some snakeskin protection on our turbine leads. Now these turbine leads, they'll come from the turbine, follow up in this little U shape here, come forward, and they'll make it to about here. So we do have to put some extensions on those guys. We'll do them up just before we put the main tank in, but at least that gets this run forward, and it gets run forward above the tank, which is a nice hidden clean area. So additionally, I'm going to hook up some leads for our afterburner lighting controller, which is right there. So that's got a servo lead and a power lead. Same thing, we want to run those forward, and those are going to be run forward basically to this distance here, so that we can hook them up in the future to our central box and power system and everything. All right, so one tank's installed here. I went a little bit above and beyond and put some split wrap. I think I can show it here, right there. So I put some split wrap on the wires. The wires don't really need it because it's got the snakeskin on it, but part of the reason I did it was the air lines coming from the air brakes forward on the other side. They're going to be sitting over top of the carbon structure, the swing wing structure, so I didn't want them to be rubbing on that. So anyways, ended up wrapping the wires up in general. So now everything's run forward, other than a couple things like fuel line, whatever, but not worried about that stuff. So we'll put this other tank in, and then we can get these tanks, I think, bolted in place. We may want to wait though. When we put the carbon structure through, we may need a little bit of wiggle room in those tanks. So we will wait to bolt the tanks in the rear portion here until we get the swing wing reinstalled. But there is the mess in the front end so far, and it will get worse. So we've installed the intake ducts, and those fit quite nicely just in place, but they would not stay in place without some fastening. So what we've done on the intake ducts is take a little bit of shoe goop or goop product, which is this guy right here. So in this case, it's marine goop, which is UV resistant, and just put a nice little band around the top, just the joint where they meet each other. And then also from inside the intakes, put a little piece on the joint there as well too. So once that cures, it will be nice and solid. But if that ever needs to come off, it will be removable fairly easily. So next thing we're doing, since the turbines are now mounted, is I'm going in here and treating the screws with some CA, just thin CA. Now I like to do this with the CA wet, and the benefit to that is it helps lock that screw in place. So even if I was to pull these out later and the CA is hardened on the threads, I will go back, put a drop on the screw before I screw it back in. That way those guys are stuck in place. And then we need to take them off, they just go pop as the CA releases. So it's a nice little security thing to do. All right, so from memory, I believe we only need to take one side of the swing wing mechanism off. So that's what we're doing. So I've taken all the parts and movement and everything off, and now we're just doing the main portion here. Now these are pretty hefty pieces of material We saw this in the big one, but also this one as well too. Your carbon is very thick. I don't need to measure it, but probably a 1/4 inch carbon, which is like 8 millimeters, 6 to 8 millimeters, something like that. It looks maybe like 8, but swing wing mechanism here, absolutely massive, and holds a lot of force, of course. So we'll just set all that stuff aside. Now I think this just slips in, so we'll try that from the other side and see. Now I'm just getting this queued up because before we put this mechanism in, I'm pretty sure we need to do our lights on our intake area. Good, so that works. Now this carbon's pretty aggressive, sharp edges, so that's the reason we spent so much time protecting that stuff that flows over the carbon. And as far as spacing goes, that's kind of where it's going to be sitting, in that type of area right there. So that is lovely. So that works. So we can pull this back out now. And the reason we don't want to have that in yet is because it's nice to have access to this area to be able to put these lights in. So we've got our top and bottom shoulder lights, I think is what I call them. And that's what we're going to be working on here next. All right, so lens time. How do these guys work? Well, these are pre-cut lenses, which is nice. This came in the kit that was supplied with the aircraft from the owner. And this fits the inner cutout perfectly. So what I'm going to do as a first step is I'm going to take my Dremel with my small bit and just cut out that inner surface. So if you see there like that, we're going to have a little bit of the green left on there. So what we end up doing with these lenses is we'll take the lights themselves, and I like to put so this will be installed like this. So that'll be the underside. I like to install, so drill out a little spot there, put the light right inside, and we'll have these parts glued together. So when we slip this into the fuselage, it'll actually be like this. When we slip into the fuselage, the light is already fastened to the acrylic piece, which works out really well. And then of course, when this light's on, it absolutely glows. The heat sink's important. You want to make sure the heat sink's there, so it's taking care of any of the excess temperature as well. So, but that's ultimately how we're going to do this. Now these lenses are flat, so when they're installed on here, there's a curve to this fuselage. So we are going to also sand this down and mimic that curvature. Doesn't need much, maybe 1 millimeter to 2 on each end, and then the curve kind of follows that. So it's just nice detail work. Now, why do we want to do these lights first? Well, you don't really have any access to this area. So there is the gear opening, which is here, and we can get our hand here, but we don't have any clear shot to this spot. So I know when I put these guys in previously, I actually took like a wood rod and kind of stuck it down in there and helped to hold the light up in place while we got it glued in place. So it's a bit interesting to get these stuck in with no access, but that's why you don't want to have the gear in here, the swing wing mechanism in here, because it just blocks all your access to that area. So that's one of the questions that I've gotten so far with doing another one of these F-14s was, is this easier than the first time, harder than the first time? It's easier because I've been through this before. The first time we did one of these F-14s, you're kind of figuring out the puzzle. This one, because of the size, all those puzzle pieces need to be put in at the right moment in order for things to happen properly. So as an example, we've already covered some of this, but you can't put your duct in and then try and fit your tank in. It just doesn't work. So there's kind of those steps to everything to make sure everything works properly. So that's really the challenge with the smaller F-14. The bigger one, the XL version that we did earlier this year, it's much more wide open. Things aren't restricting other things, so it's a little bit easier to work on as well. All right, so we got this top section sanded out. Now I did sand the perimeter of the lower section just to make it a little bit easier to fit. So I did the initial carve out with the Dremel, then I took my half flat, half round file and worked that over a little bit of time here and just very carefully got that fit. So that one's good. Now we need to do the underside. I'm not doing the shaping on these guys till we have both open, so I'll be able to put my finger through this hole, we can get it dropped down, shape it, and have easy access to pull this in and out, because if we take this piece right now and it drops in place, it's going to be a real pain to get it out of that section of the fuselage. So now we'll do exactly the same thing on the bottom side. All right, so lenses have been shaped. You can see there that we added some angle to it. And next thing to do was to get the light fit to the lenses. So these lights are wired together, so they're designed specifically for this kit. And so what I did was I took a, what size is that? 3/8 drill bit. It's a brand new drill bit, so it's very sharp, and drilled a recess there. And then we took the Dremel and added 2 side recesses. And then we added 2 recesses, or a recess in this direction, for the wires themselves. So what that looks like now is that light fits in there beautifully. So we'll glue that light in place, and then when that light is sitting in the fuselage, it's actually going to be sitting like this, but it will be spaced off the fuselage, so these cooling fins will be able to do their job quite well, actually. So, but that is how they're going to be positioned. They're going to be a little interesting to get in there, so we'll have to kind of feed everything through and then position them through the pockets that we were talking about before, but I don't think it'll be a problem. So that is how we're getting these lenses and everything set up. All right, so here they are assembled. We've got the top one marked and the bottom one's not marked. So I put a bit of E6000 glue in the actual pocket where the LED sits, stuck the LED in there, put a little bit of CA around the perimeter just to hold everything in place. So that should be perfection. And now we can try and struggle to put these in the fuselage. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I kind of envision it being fairly easy in my head. I can reach up in there and pull out the wire from inside the fuselage, which is fine. That's at least fairly easy. Now I think these should go in there fairly easy, as long as we've got a, oh yeah, there we go. Not bad at all. Okay, so that's good. I think what I'll do is I'll put the bottom one in first, because then at least with the bottom one in, we can tack it with a little bit of CA, and then we'll be able to put some goop on there. And we've actually got OK access. So I think in the center of your screen, you can see something green. There we go. I think we're focused in. So we actually have OK access to put goop on it from that portion. So I think we'll be okay. Okay, so this one's nice and flush. Probably gonna do the same thing, and we'll just add clear coat to it after. All right, so we'll spot glue the lower one in place with our CA. I'm gonna try and not move that as much as possible, or as little as possible. Put a little bit of CA around the perimeter, tack it with some kicker. Awesome. I've got a little bit more installed in the other spots around the light. Good, so that's not bad. That actually was much easier than I was thinking it was going to be. This guy here, we may just tuck it in like that, and might put a little bit of CA around the edge and get it pushed in place, and then add some goop from the inside. Yeah, we've got great access there, actually. Well, not great. Let me rephrase that. But we'll be able to get in there, so that's not bad at all. So both sets of shoulder lights are now complete. Top and bottom, of course, so those are done. We haven't glued them in place yet, so I'm gonna get a long screwdriver and get some goop installed on the inside. Really nothing special about that, just getting something that reaches in here that we're able to put some goop around there. They're just held in place right now with CA, probably fine, but the goop's just gonna make it one step better. So once we do that, it's time to put our swing wing back in the aircraft. Now it's been about a day and a bit, so our intake ducts, the goop that we put there, you can see it leveled out nicely, and it's nice and solid now. So these guys are nicely fixed in place. And once we get that swing wing in, then we can bolt our tanks up. So lots going on now in the next little bit. All right, so it is swing wing / actuator time. So I'll show you guys a couple important things here with the swing wing actuators. So this is the upgrade one from Skymaster. This is the one that we're changing it to. We've talked about this already. So it's larger or different gear ratio on them. So this is 63, this is 150. So this has way more force to it. Now I've gone in and I have reduced the voltage in the central box to be 6 volts. You can see it right there. So one of the things you'll find is these actuators don't like to operate at the higher voltages. So they're labeled as 6 on the label, and that is what they're supposed to be operated at. Now there's some guys online that have said, or they actually have confirmed with Actuonics, that you can run them at 7.4 volts. The downside is that they don't work as good at the higher voltage. So I'll prove this to you. So right now at 6 volts here, if I try and stall this guy out while I extend it, this is the stock one, it takes a lot of force to stall it out. So we'll suck that back in. Now we'll go into the central box. We'll bump that up to 8.4 volts, just so it's full LiPo power. So it's actually about 8.2 right now. And we'll unplug the upgraded one. And now I'll try and stall this out. No problem. So it takes almost 0 force to stall this guy out. Like, I'm not even pushing on it and it's stalling out. Now we'll drop this back down to 6 volts and you'll see works no problem. So they definitely like to work at the lower voltage. Now, the upgraded actuators from Skymaster would probably be fine at the 6 volt setting, but we did experience some in the past that stalled out when you pushed on the front of the wings. So this is the actuator that we have gone to, and this is the one that came with the kit that the previous owner upgraded to. Now, because of the higher gear ratio, it is a little bit slower. So these are both retracted all the way. They're both plugged into the throttle channels. So we'll just go fully extended. So you can see there, that one's not very happy. So probably a good thing to be changing that anyways. Anyways, so that's fully extended. Now we'll go the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So about 3 times, almost 3 times the amount of time, which makes sense because we're going from a 63 gear ratio to a 150. So that's right on par with what's written there. So that's good. So we will be using these guys. We'll change some of the stuff in here. Now, I actually don't like the metal extender that's on the Skymaster one. I prefer to have the plastic bushing or extender there. We will change this guy out to the aluminum one if possible, but this one actually fits better. But the aluminum one, of course, would be stronger. So we'll rob a few parts to make that switch, but that's our actuators in a nutshell. Now what we'll do is we'll get these actuators ready, and we're gonna go through on this side of the swing wing because we're keeping this side intact, and we're gonna Loctite all of our fasteners and everything. Then when we put this side back together in the fuselage, we'll do the same thing over here. So we will Loctite these guys first, and then we will get the actuator changed out. All right, so this side's all been Loctited. We've slipped the wing swing mechanism into the fuselage, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do up our tanks. The tanks are just gonna suck themselves back against the mounts, and then we will get all of our wing swing mechanisms installed on the other side. Now we're gonna leave this loose, not that it bolts anywhere, because our gear has to mount onto the wing swing mechanism as we've talked about. So there's a lot going on in this area once we put the gear back in, but we do have some work to do to the gear as well. All right, so right side has been put together, and we have shortened the linear actuator cable here and put a plug servo plug right there. So that just makes it easier to take these apart, replace, whatever in the future. And we don't have to deal with a big wire bundle in this area. And then we've got that cable, which is long enough to run forward in the fuselage. Now when we do these ends up here, we'll cover this later on, but we're going to take the signal and that's going to go to the appropriate channel on the central box. So let's say our linear actuator is channel 17. We'll have both whites going to 17, but both of the positive and negatives will be run from a separate BEC that reduces the voltage down to 6 volts. So one of these BECs is going to power our lighting system. The other BEC output on the central box is going to power our linear actuators. But we'll have another BEC in there to drop this voltage down even further. So it's time to start prepping landing gear for installation. So we want to make sure that all of the fasteners on the landing gear get Loctited. So most of these need to be done before the landing gear is installed back in the plane. So we've got all of these on the back plate here that need to be Loctited. So none of this is done from the manufacturer. Never assume that it is. And the other thing we need to do is our pins right here. So you've got these pins that the gear rotates on, and they are held in place with a set screw. So a little 1.5 millimeter set screw. There's no flat spots on these pins. So the pins, that set screw can come loose, and it will come loose. So what needs to happen is you make a flat spot in the middle portion of the pin. We'll get that installed, and then we'll Loctite those little set screws in there as well too. So there's not a ton to do on the F-14 gear. It's actually quite simple landing gear, but it's critical to get all those fasteners done up before you install this back in the plane. We do have a bunch of nomenclature to install on the landing gear, but we'll install that once it's inside the aircraft. So we'll treat this very much the same way that we do landing gear pins. So we're just going to add a flat spot in the midpoint to this pin. The location really doesn't matter. All that matters is that you get that flat spot in there so the set screw has somewhere to grab onto. So that is all we're looking for when we do that. So this is ready to reinstall here, but in order to get the other pin out to flat spot it, I believe we have to separate the back portion here and pull this leg off. So we'll get all that done, but this is essentially what you're looking for. And when you put that back together, just making sure that when you peek through the hole, the flat spot is inside the hole. All right, so we've got all of our screws and fasteners and everything Loctited on the gear itself. And as we're going through this, we're lubricating pivot points and contact points. So that's all done. Now I've taken off the tire assembly, wheel assembly here. And this is kind of an interesting setup, I think updated compared to the last one. So there's a single screw in the center of the fastener, and then it's like a standard bolt setup, which is nice because then you don't have to try and pop off the 3D printed piece. But you do need to take the wheel apart to do the screws in the back of the wheel here. So we'll be Loctiting these guys. And if you ever overinflate the tires are air fillable on Skymaster aircraft. The only way to get the air out is by splitting the hub assembly. So you'd have to take it off just like we just did, undo all these screws, and it kind of blows up with a loud bang. So the nipple to fill is right there. So always be cautious if you're filling up the wheels. Now we'll do all these screws here, and the brake assembly is going to stay exactly like it is on the wheel. So we won't disturb that, but it's pretty straightforward stuff. One of the things that's deceiving that most people don't get if they take this apart and don't pay attention to how it goes back together, this little pad material here is not for braking. The pad material sits against the O-ring that operates the brakes. And then you've got all these friction discs as well too, which sit in there just like that. And then those friction discs interlock with all the screws on the back of the wheel. So that is the gear assembly in a nutshell. Now the last thing we need to do on this gear assembly is paint the scissor linkages, which we have not done yet. If we were better assemblers of aircraft, we would have done that in advance, but we're not, so we forgot. So I'll grab the pieces, we'll take a look at those. So why the upgraded linkages? Well, good question. If you didn't see the very first build series of this aircraft back 4 years ago, we covered this. And what happens is when this gear comes down, it comes down with a lot of force. And the only thing stopping this gear from continuing to extend is this little air cylinder. That little air cylinder, very thin aluminum, it's not designed to take that amount of force. And the cylinder usually stays intact, but your little ball joints on the ends here do not. There's no stop built into the stock setting. Yes, Skymaster probably knows about this. It's just something that they've never bothered to change. So if you're buying one of these things, you really have to get a set of these guys right here. So this is scissor linkage setup with a lock built in. So this would be this side, and this would be the other side. So this thing scissors like this, and then when it comes down, the little tabs here lock against those plates. So with this new setup, the actual lock is built into the scissor linkage, which is the way it should be. So we do need to take these out. And the maker of these locking scissor linkages is Michael Brown. On Facebook is the best way to contact him. We also have a set of pins here as well too. I believe these are titanium pins. So those are, I think their scale is the reason for them, because these ones have E-clips on both sides. And this guy here on the outside face, we would use this piece, and then we'd use the E-clip on the inside. So yeah, so we've got all that stuff. So we need to get these things painted in this type of color. I'm gonna do some digging in my paints and find our antique white. All right guys, and that's gonna wrap up video 4 in the Skymaster normal F-14 series. We got a lot of details accomplished in this video, and next one we are going to be starting off with our gear installation and continuing to get stuff moving forward. So thanks so much for watching, channel members. Thank you for what you do. If you guys are watching this and you're wondering what channel membership is, channel membership's a paid thing, but our channel members get to see our videos early. So during this series, as an example, we'll have a couple weeks uploaded to YouTube, and channel members get to see all those videos early. So thank you, channel members, for that. If you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, I encourage you to at least subscribe to the channel. We got lots of cool stuff coming this winter. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.